I watched every single Rick and Morty episode and ranked them from worst to best, because clearly, I have nothing better to do. I'm going through all 73 episodes, and for each episode, I'll give you a quick summary and share my thoughts on it. At the end of each season, I'll rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 Pickle Ricks, with 1 being absolutely terrible and 5 being pure genius. And at the end of it all, I'll count down the episodes from worst to best. But before we dive in, a quick shout out to Alice Mark for the inspiration behind the video. We start with a pilot, and let me say, this show wastes no time being unhinged. Rick is a drunk scientist who constantly drags his awkward 14-year-old grandson Morty into dangerous adventures. One night, he wakes Morty up, flies him around in a spaceship, and casually threatens to blow up Earth to restart humanity with Morty and his crush Jessica as the new Adam and Eve. Morty shuts it down and Rick passes out drunk. The next day, Morty skips school again to help Rick collect alien seeds, which he has to smuggle by shoving them up where the sun don't shine. His parents are ready to kick Rick out for being a bad influence on Morty, until Morty starts spitting genius level science. Beth and Jerry are impressed, but it turns out the super intelligence is just a side effect of the seeds he has shoved up his rear end, and now he's spazzing the heck out. This episode had everything a pilot needed. It introduced the characters well, set the tone for the rest of the season, and hooked the viewers in. It was nothing crazy, but it was definitely a great start to the show. Jerry's fed up with the family dog, Snuffles, who keeps peeing inside, so Rick slaps a helmet on him to make him super smart. Meanwhile, Morty wants better math grades, so Rick helps him cheat by diving into his teacher's dreams, Inception style. While they're stuck dream hopping, fighting off a bootleg Freddy Krueger, Snuffles, now going by Snowball, becomes a genius and takes over the house, turning the family into his pets. Just when world domination is next, Snowball has a change of heart and takes the dogs to start a utopia on another planet. This episode is weird in the best way. Talking dogs, dream hopping, it's peak early Rick and Morty chaos. I love the side plot with Snowball. It's funny, dark, and actually kind of wholesome in the end. Great episode to follow up a great pilot. It's Christmas, and Morty brings Rick a homeless guy to experiment on as a gift. Rick shrinks Morty and sends him into the guy's body to visit a theme park he built inside the dude's organs. Morty hangs out with the staff and checks out rides like the Haunted Liver and Pirates of the Pancreas. But things go downhill fast when a bunch of diseases break loose and the body starts dying. Meanwhile, Jerry's Christmas dinner gets awkward fast when his parents show up with a guy named Jacob who keeps Jerry's mom company, if you catch my drift. In the end, the corpse ends up exploding all over the dinner table. Merry Christmas, I guess. This episode really got me appreciating the writers behind Rick and Morty. The creativity is off the charts. Another thing I love about Rick and Morty is the double storylines they have every episode. On one side, Rick and Morty are going through some insane adventure, while on the other side, the family is also dabbling in some weird out-of-the-box plot. Rick, Morty, and Jerry get trapped in a simulation. But not just any simulation, it's a simulation inside a simulation inside another simulation. Jerry, totally clueless, has the best day ever pitching dumb ad campaigns to his boss. Rick, on the other hand, figures it out immediately and keeps breaking the aliens' fake reality until they basically rage quit. Just when Rick thinks he's escaped, bam, still in the simulation. But then plot twist, he was actually tricking the aliens the whole time. It's just twist after twist like some budget M. Night Shyamalan movie. Hence the episode name, I guess. This one was clever. I love any episode where Rick gets to be an arrogant mastermind and somehow still win. Plus, watching Jerry succeed only because the world around him is dumbed down is kind of wholesome. Rick gives the family a magic box that summons these blue guys called Meeseeks. They pop up, do a job, and then disappear. Simple, right? Except Jerry wants help with his golf swing, and the Meeseeks just can't fix it. So more show up, and before you know it, they formed a Mr. Meeseeks cult. Meanwhile, Rick drags Morty on a fantasy quest to a giant world. Morty tries to be the hero, but ends up getting assaulted by a jelly bean king in a bathroom stall. Yeah, it's weird. Morty finally goes beast mode, Rick helps take down the corrupt kingdom, and back home, the Meeseeks are ready to kill Jerry and Beth, until he finally nails a shot and they all explode from relief. This episode's a classic just for introducing Mr. Meeseeks, but low-key, they get annoying after like 2 minutes of listening to them. Also, this episode introduced one of the most philosophical catchphrases of modern television.
WUBBA LUBBA dub dubs! Yeah!
Morty wants Jessica to like him, so Rick whips up a love potion. But Jessica's got the flu, and suddenly everyone's crushing on Morty. Rick tries to fix her, but now they're all bug mutants who want to mate and kill him. Nice. Meanwhile, Jerry goes full action hero, thinking Beth's cheating, and straight up kills her co-worker with a crowbar. Signs of a healthy relationship, I guess. Earth's a mess, so Rick takes Morty to a new reality where everything's fixed. But also, everyone's dead. They bury their own bodies in the backyard and take their places with their new family. And poor Morty's absolutely traumatized by the end of the episode. Morty walks into an alien pawn shop, and of course, buys a sex robot. Turns out, he gets her pregnant with a half-human, half-Gazorpazorpian baby, who grows into a full Morty Jr. in seconds. Meanwhile, Rick and Summer visit Gazorpazorp, a planet ruled by women where men are locked up like animals. Back on Earth, Morty's stuck dealing with Morty Jr.'s rage issues. He lies about toxic air to keep him inside, but the kid ends up smashing windows and threatening neighbors. Rick wants to kill the kid, but Morty steps up and defends him. In the end, Morty Jr. chooses to become a writer and starts a whole new life on his own. This episode is weird, but sweet. Robots, raging kids, female dominant alien worlds. Morty embracing fatherhood was actually kind of cute. This episode is just filled with female stereotype jokes, and I'm here for it. Rick smashes the family's boring reality show and replaces it with a TV that streams infinite dimensions. One channel's got Popcorn, another has Jerry as a famous actor chatting with David Letterman. Morty's not impressed, but the rest of the family get hooked. Rick gives them interdimensional goggles to spy on their alternate realities, where Jerry's partying with Johnny Depp, Beth's a real surgeon, and Summer accidentally finds out she was a mistake. Beth and Jerry start falling apart after seeing how happy they are single, until they watch alternate Jerry absolutely cock it mid-breakdown, which somehow brings them closer than ever. Alright episode, nothing out of the ordinary. Sweet ending though. Nice to see Rick and Morty not being the crazy ones for once. The family's enjoying breakfast when Rick builds a whole ass robot, just to pass the butter. Morty wants help from Rick with a science project, but Jerry jumps in, desperate to prove himself as a father. Meanwhile, Summer starts working at a creepy thrift store called Needful Things, run by Mr. Needful, who's literally the devil. He gives out cursed items for free, but you end up paying with your soul. Summer gets hooked, so Rick opens Curse Purge Plus to uncurse everything. Jerry and Morty build a solar system model, but Jerry insists Pluto is still a planet. Plutonians abduct them, who love Jerry's thinking and make him a celebrity. While back on Earth, Summer and Rick team up to take down the devil. Someone's out here killing Ricks and collecting Mortys like Pokemon cards. The Rick Council blames our Rick, C-137. Rick and Morty go on the run to find evil Rick, the supposed killer. Morty freaks out, wondering if he's just a human shield for Rick, after noticing most Rick treat their Mortys like trash. Meanwhile, Jerry gets babysat by Doofus Rick, the nicest Rick ever. Jerry loves him so much, he basically adopts him as a new stepdad. Morty leads a Morty rebellion against evil Rick, but plot twist, evil Rick was mind-controlled by his own Morty. Say what? This episode has everything. A whole underground society of Ricks, a Morty revolution, evil Morty's origin story. Easily the best episode of the season. Beth and Jerry go on a Titanic cruise, where Jerry's excited to reenact the movie, but Beth couldn't care less. She warns Rick, Morty, and Summer not to trash the house or no more adventures. Summer and Rick both throw parties the second the parents leave, because who cares what mum says, right? Jerry bonds with the Titanic-obsessed maid, Lucy, who tries to trap him, but Beth saves him just in time. Back home, Morty accidentally teleports the house to an alien world. Rick sends Morty to find crystals to fix the mess, but when Morty comes back with the crystals, Rick just ends up snorting them. Morty cancels the party, frustrated. Bird Person tells Morty Rick's a mess, but trying, and Morty ends up deciding to stay and help. The house is a mess, and Beth and Jerry are about to walk through the door, so Rick does what any logical adult would do. Freezes time. And that wraps up season 1. Good debut season in my opinion. Sets the tone well for the rest of the show. Overall, I give season 1 3.5 out of 5 pickle Ricks. We pick up right after season 1, with time frozen. Morty and Summer have been cleaning for 6 months, and Rick's finally ready to unfreeze things. But unfreezing time might just cause a time glitch, which will in turn disintegrate Beth and Jerry. No biggie though. Rick unfreezes time, a guy falls off the roof, and he bribes Beth and Jerry to get ice cream to keep things chill. Morty and Summer argue about who Rick likes more, which splits time into 2 timelines. Meanwhile, Beth and Jerry hit a deer on their way to ice cream, and as Beth tries to save its life, some angry hunter rocks up with a lawyer claiming it's his deer. Rick tries to fix time but makes it worse, splitting it into 4 timelines. A 4th dimensional being shows up, gives them stabilizer collars, and throws Rick in time jail. Morty almost falls into the void, Rick sacrifices himself, begs God not to die, ends up surviving, then immediately tells God to screw off. I like how the new season picks up right where season 1 left off. Rick's teaching Morty to drive the space cruiser, excited to finally send him on errands. Morty's also excited, until Rick gets a weird call and cuts the lesson short. Then Jerry pops up from the back seat, claiming he should be there as a dad to see his son drive for the first time. Rick, frustrated, drops him off at Jerryboree, a daycare for all the Jerrys in the multiverse. Rick sells an antimatter gun to a hitman named Chrombopulus Michael. Morty freaks out and accidentally kills him. Morty also saves a telepathic alien called Far, who wants to go home, but turns out his species plans to wipe out all carbon life, so Morty also kills him. Meanwhile, Jerry's chilling at daycare, and when Rick and Morty finally come to take him home, they pick up the wrong Jerry. Rick, Morty, and Summer pick up a distress signal from a wrecked alien ship. Rick, while robbing the ship, ends up running into Unity, a hive mind he used to date. Unity controls the whole planet into peace, but the planet's citizens jump into a race war the second they regain free will. Meanwhile, Jerry and Beth find an alien named Blim Blam in Rick's secret basement, who by the way, eats babies. While they're busy arguing, Blim Blam ends up breaking out. Unity breaks up with Rick, calling him too toxic. Rick builds a suicide machine to end it all, but luckily passes out drunk before he can do anything tragic. This was a very deep episode. It hit hard. Uncle Steve's been living with the Smiths for a year, except Rick has no clue who he is, so he vaporizes him at breakfast. Turns out Uncle Steve was a memory parasite, an alien that implants fake memories to make people think they've always been there. The house goes into parasite lockdown, and suddenly everyone remembers weird side characters like Cousin Nicky, Frankenstein's monster, and Sleepy Gary, who Jerry's weirdly in love with. The house fills up fast, and even the family starts doubting Rick's existence. Morty figures out parasites only give good memories, so if you've hated someone, they're real. Cue a bloodbath massacre. Just when things settle, Beth accidentally shoots Mr. Poopy Butthole, who was actually real. He barely survives, and Beth ends the episode crying into wine like a mum going through a midlife crisis. This episode had a great plotline. A giant alien head shows up in the sky like an intergalactic Simon Cowell and tells Earth they're in a cosmic singing contest. Lose and Earth gets destroyed. Oh, and conveniently, an earthquake killed every musician on the planet, except Ice-T, because of course. Rick and Morty drop a song called Get Swifty, the Cromulons love it and send Earth straight into the finals. Morty freaks, steals Rick's portal gun, and accidentally runs off to Bird Person's planet. After getting some emotional advice from BP, Morty returns back to Rick. They make another hit song, Earth wins, and Ice-T goes back home to fight in math or something. Rick's car battery dies, which is normally a 5-minute fix, unless your battery contains a tiny universe full of slaves powering it. Rick and Morty jump inside to fix it, while Rick tells his ship to keep Summer safe, which gets a bit out of hand. Inside, Rick meets Zeep, a scientist who actually made his own microverse inside of Rick's microverse, which sparks an ego war between the two. And inside Zeep's microverse, we meet another scientist, Kyle, who's made his own teenyverse. Kyle soon realizes how meaningless his life is and decides to end things, leaving Rick, Morty, and Zeep stuck in his teenyverse. Morty goes off the rails and starts hanging out with savage tree people who eat their own kids, which sends Morty into a full-blown meltdown as he cries his way back to Rick. Back outside, Rick's ship is keeping Summer safe at all costs. They all reunite just in time for ice cream with fly toppings. I really like this episode. Great concept. Vampires at Morty and Summer's school. Rick's solution? He uploads his brain into a high school aged clone and becomes Tiny Rick. Like Rick, but small. Tiny Rick slays the vampire, but then gets too comfy in his teenage skin. He parties, shreds emo songs screaming for help, and becomes cool. Summer picks up on the cries for help no one else hears. Morty doesn't because he's blinded by Jessica. Eventually, Rick's stuck performing angsty songs at the school dance like it's Vampire Weekend until Morty and Summer force him to listen to Elliott Smith, the ultimate sad boy reset. That breaks the spell, and Rick returns to his old, alcoholic, emotionally stunted self. Meanwhile, Beth and Jerry attend alien couples therapy and accidentally unleash twisted kaiju versions of themselves. Beth's version of Jerry is a worm, Jerry's Beth is an angry, overbearing beast. Therapy ends with them creating a literal goddess Beth, reconciling and totally ignoring every red flag. Jerry eats Rick's forbidden ice cream and almost dies because apparently it's full of mutant bacteria, so they rush him to an intergalactic hospital named St. Gloopy Noops. While Rick messes with the TV, Jerry finds out that his ding-a-ling is the only thing that can save a famous alien hero.
Oh, hell no!
At first he's not into it until the aliens start dissing the human race, saying they're too obsessed with fun time. So Jerry steps up to be a hero and totally fails. He exposes the aliens' drug habit, ruins everything, and runs into surgery crying with a vibrator before getting shot 57 times. Rick and Morty hit a space bug and stop on a random planet for wiper fluid. Bad idea, it's purge night on this planet, where everyone goes full murder mode for one night a year. Morty wants to help a girl, Arthricia, but surprise, she tricks them, steals their ship, and Rick gets shot with his own gun. While that's happening, Jerry's being a sad sax and Summer's kind of over him. Morty eats some sketchy candy bar and goes full John Wick mode, killing an entire town and nearly killing Arthricia. Rick stops him, lies about the candy bar, and they kinda just move on. Bird Person's getting married and Rick refuses to attend, but then Jerry gets mailed to the wedding somehow, so the whole family ends up going. Rick tries to be nice, he gives a toast and even says he's happy for the couple. Then boom, plot twist. The bride's a cop, the feds bust in, and it turns into a space war. Bird Person gets Swiss cheesed, Squanchy goes beast mode, and they barely escape. Earth's not safe anymore, so they planet hop trying to find a new home until they make camp on a tiny Earth planet. Rick hears the family arguing about whether to ditch him. That hits Rick hard, so he does the noble thing and turns himself in instead. Good cliffhanger to end the season. Season 2 was a great follow-up from Season 1. I give Season 2 4 out of 5 Pickle Ricks. Rick's in space jail, or so it seems. Turns out, it's all a fake memory inside a diner. He even makes up a sad story about his wife dying just to mess with the feds. Meanwhile, Summer and Morty dig up a portal gun, go to Cronenberg world, and get arrested by the Council of Ricks. Rick body swaps out of jail, blows up the Citadel, wrecks the Federation's money system, and escapes like it's no big deal. The family return home, and Jerry gives Beth an ultimatum, to pick between either him or Rick. Jerry ends up packing his bags. Rick then reveals that this was all part of his plan to kick Jerry out of the family and become the man of the house. Rick, Morty, and Summer get home from one wild trip, only to walk into another. Divorce. Jerry saying goodbye, all sad and soggy, but the kids couldn't care less. So off they go to Mad Max style wasteland. Rick's after a rare isotope, but Summer turns into a war boss, and Morty bonds with his arm, which turns out to be haunted. Rick builds robot clones of the kids to take their place back home. Everything spirals, and eventually Summer realizes she's just reliving her parents' broken marriage. Rick ends up getting what he came for, and Morty drops a truth bomb. If Jerry really cared, he would have fought to stay. Morty's getting ready for family therapy, but Rick's turned himself into a pickle.
I'm Pickle Rick!
Morty figures out it's Rick's weird way of skipping therapy, especially after that sketchy syringe above him. Beth pockets the syringe, and they all leave Pickle Rick alone in the garage. Then it rains, then he's in a sewer, then he murders rats and builds a full-on exosuit, but he's still a pickle. Back at therapy, Dr. Wong calls out the family's issues, but Beth just praises Rick, blinded by his genius. Meanwhile, Rick teams up with a jaguar and fights a bunch of Russian spies to escape. He finally shows up at therapy, says it's boring, and calls it a day. Best episode so far. Rick and Morty get called by the Vindicators to fight World Ender. Rick hates them, shows up wasted, craps all over the table, and skips the mission. Morty goes instead, proud to be ripping a Vindicator's vest. But when they arrive, they're stuck in a deadly Saw-styled game, which turns out was set up by drunk Rick the night before. Each trap matches Rick's petty insults about the team. Morty solves them all, and the final trap is a ride where drunk Rick seems to express his love, but not to Morty, to Noob Noob, the janitor. Supernova flips out, tries to kill them, but a logic concert stops her. Morty ends up quitting the Vindicators and the episode ends. Jerry's life is a mess until Rick drags him, naked and confused, on a space vacation where no one can die. They chill for a bit, but then Jerry gets caught in an assassination plot set by one of Rick's enemies, Risotto Groupon. Jerry refuses to kill his father-in-law, chaos follows, and Rick saves him from alien snakes, only to use him as bait later. Rick later gets neutralized and turned into a dumb kid, letting Jerry run circles around him. They get sucked into a wild mind trip until Rick finally kills Risotto. Jerry walks away, choosing loneliness over pity. Meanwhile, Summers hit rock bottom after a breakup and accidentally supersizes herself with Rick's morphizer gun. Beth and Morty try to fix the mess, with Morty calling out Beth at the end for being just as selfish as Rick is. That one stung. Rick interrupts Morty trying to ask Jessica on a date by dragging him on another crazy adventure. They hit an alien spa to detox and relax, but instead end up splitting their toxic traits into actual people. Rude Rick and anxious Morty. Meanwhile, the real Rick and Morty are relaxing, stress-free. Back at school, the now confident Morty impresses Jessica, but Rick senses trouble. Turns out the toxic versions of themselves are planning to escape and cause chaos. Rick fights back with a nanovirus, forcing them to merge again. Toxic Morty escapes, becomes a Wall Street douche with a girlfriend, but Rick and Jessica find him and bring him back. Morty breaks up and gets ready for more adventures. Rick and Morty head to visit Atlantis, but it turns out the Citadel Rick destroyed a couple of episodes ago is apparently still alive and thriving. We've got corrupt elections, Rick on Morty crime, and just weird stuff happening everywhere. Morty is running for president, which of course makes all the Ricks lose their nut. Cop Rick gets stuck with Morty Cop, who hates his own kind. They end up busting some Morty locos in Morty Town, who are caught stealing portal juice. Elsewhere, a stressed out Rick worker snaps and takes a Rick hostage, becoming a nightmare for bosses. Some Morty misfits go on a magical quest, only to find out their magical portal is actually just a garbage chute. Morty ends up winning the election, evil Morty takes over, and things get crazy. Fun fact, this episode was originally called The Tales of Citadel. Anyone get that Ryan Trahan reference? No? Okay, moving on. Morty looks at a cursed turtle, accidentally breaks reality, and goes home crying to Rick. Standard Morty. Turns out Rick's been wiping Morty's memories behind his back this whole time. He calls them Morty's mind blowers, and we dive into the highlight reel of Morty's psychological damage. We see Morty driving a man to suicide, Morty finding out squirrels secretly run the world, and Morty catching Rick getting clowned by NASA, all erased to protect Rick's ego. Morty freaks out, they both use memory wiper on each other, and soon neither of them know who they are. Summer shows up to save the day, follows Rick's pre-made in case of an emergency instructions, and resets them both. Rick and Morty wake up on the couch thinking they passed out watching TV again. Very well written episode. Beth finds out her childhood imaginary world, Fruipyland, is actually a real dimension. Turns out, Rick built it to keep her kid self busy. She realizes that her childhood friend, Tommy, is still trapped inside. So Beth and Rick go to rescue him, and it turns out, Tommy survived all these years by hooking up with the local creatures, making hundreds of mutant children, and then eating them.
What the hell is even that?
Beth refuses to say sorry for leaving him and fights off his incest army like a boss. She brings back a finger as proof, so Rick uses that finger to grow a clone of Tommy to save his dad, and after seeing this, Beth starts freaking out, wondering to herself if she's also a clone Rick just made. Meanwhile, Jerry starts dating an alien named Kiara, and things get a little out of hand. An alien shows up in the White House basement, so the president calls Rick and Morty. They kill it in like 2 seconds and then go back to playing Minecraft. The president's ego gets hurt after Rick and Morty start ghosting him, so he declares war on them. Beth's freaking out over maybe being a clone, while Rick and Morty casually solve world peace off screen. The president throws a tantrum, leading to a full-on White House brawl with Rick vaporizing agents left and right. Back home, Beth and Jerry get back together, which makes Morty so happy, and Rick not so much. Nice season ending. The best season so far in my opinion. I give season 3 4.5 out of 5 Pickle Ricks. Morty finds a death crystal that shows him dying old with Jessica, so he instantly gets obsessed with the future. To make sure the future stays true, Morty follows everything the crystal shows him, which leads him to stealing the ship, crashing it, and accidentally killing Rick via forehead kebab. Rick wakes up in backup clone bodies, but it turns out every dimension is a fascist nightmare. Shrimp fascist, Teddy Bear Fascist, even Rick and Morty Fascist. He finally finds Wasp Rick, who's surprisingly chill, and helps him get home. Meanwhile, Morty lets the crystal control his every move, goes full psycho, murdering bullies, the military, and even a judge. Eventually, Morty gets humbled by Wasp Rick, and he ends up apologizing. Rick runs out of syrup at breakfast and calls on his intern, Gluty, to fetch him some more. There's one rule, and one rule only, when it comes to Gluty. Do not develop his app. Jerry, being the idiot he is, decides to ignore Rick's warnings and develops an app with Gluty anyways.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
While that mess starts, Rick sneaks off to his fancy secret toilet planet, but absolutely flips out when he realizes someone else used it, so he goes full detective mode and hunts the culprit down. Back on Earth, Jerry and Gluty launch the dating app Love Finders, and chaos breaks loose. Morty flips out on his dad for ignoring Rick's warning and forces him to shut down the app, which can only be done on Gluty's mothership. Rick ends up in a weird poop battle with his culprit, ends up winning, and is crowned the king of poop. Rick and Morty hit up HeistCon to mess with Miles Knightley, a legendary heist artist who loves the drama. But to gain access to the convention, Rick needs a heist crew, so he gathers the 4 most random people he knows and teams up. Miles challenges Rick to a heist off for the crystal skull of Horwitz, but Miles double crosses Rick by stealing his crew. Turns out, Rick is always one step ahead, and he already sent in his robot, Heistatron, who stole the skull first and swapped Miles' loot out with his own coup. Nice! Heistatron turns evil, so Rick builds Randotron and calls in weirdos like Elon Tusk and Mr. Poopy Butthole to help him defeat the robot. After begging Rick for months, Morty finally gets a dragon, Balthamore, but Morty's excitement quickly dies when he realizes the dragon's just lazy and kinda lame. Meanwhile, Jerry befriends a really weird talking cat. Rick hates the dragon at first, then gets won over by its treasure and accidentally bonds with her. Morty gets mad, which triggers a wizard who calls Baltimore a dragon for breaking his bond with Morty and takes him away. Rick, Morty, and Summer hit the dragon world, team up with more dragons, and end up killing the wizard. Jerry tries putting up Christmas lights, falls off the roof, and Rick saves him with a ray that makes him float like a balloon. Meanwhile, Rick and Morty's ship gets a flat tire, so Rick goes out to fix the tire, specifically telling Morty to stay inside. But of course, Morty sneaks out, gets bitten by a snake astronaut, and almost dies. Rick and Morty land on the snake's planet, so Rick can quickly whip up an anti-venom to save Morty's life. They learn the snake planet is divided by racism, and Morty, feeling guilty for killing the astronaut snake, buys a pet snake to send off to the snake planet to restore hope. Things go left real quick. Back on Earth, Jerry's just floating around while the Smith family are busy fighting off snakes. Rick and Morty are on a train. Why? Good question. I don't know. They quickly realize they're stuck on a story train, literally powered by plot. Each train car is some wild cutaway. Rick versus Skull Thrones, Space Christmas, a romantic snake professor. As the passengers keep telling Rick stories, things get super meta. We get songs, story circles, ripped bird person, and a villain called Story Lord. Morty breaks the system with a dumb story about Beth and Summer fighting off monsters using period powers. Rick finishes it off by accepting Jesus as his Lord and Savior. Turns out this was all happening inside a toy train Morty had bought for Rick. Rick and Morty rip off facehuggers and start blasting their way through an alien planet. Morty's parasite was a hero named Steve, Rick's was some annoying political vlogger named Bruce. They joyfully murder their way back to the ship until Beth casually asks Rick and Morty where Summer is. Back to the planet they go. Turns out, Summer's been running the place. She's now queen, sipping alien lattes while giving the facehugger species ethics, technology, and even gay rights. Steve and Bruce fall in love, while Summer fakes killing Rick and Morty to escape, but the aliens catch on, until Morty's god-awful harmonica playing causes them all to explode. And then they escape. Rick sets up one of his classic, over-the-top backup plans, a fake vat of acid for when things go south. Morty initially clowns on the idea, saying it'll never work, until they're both forced to jump in during a deal gone wrong. Morty's fed up and wants a do-over device like video games, so Rick builds one. Morty rewinds life for fun, until Jerry accidentally resets everything. Plot twist, Rick never actually invented time travel. Every time Morty rewinded, he was just swapping in a new Morty from another universe. So to fix it, Rick fuses the timelines together, which causes reality to descend into chaos. Morty learns a very important lesson. shut up and never mock Rick's stupid ideas. I love the extents Rick goes to out of pettiness just to prove his point. Great episode. Rick gets a booty call from his ex, who turns out to be a whole planet named Gaia. She's pregnant and claims Rick's the dad. The babies are a new species about to pop out, so Rick and Beth rush to teach them civilization. Jerry tries to drag Morty and Summer on a camping trip but gets ditched. He ends up bonding with Gaia's dumbest kids and becomes their tent-pitching god king. The Ricklets, Rick's children, go to war with Jerry's tribe until the real dad shows up and blows up half the place. Jerry saves Beth and the family bails, leaving behind a ship rigged to blow up the Ricklets if they ever try to visit Rick again. This episode's got everything. Galactic wars, family drama, invisibility bouts, and Rick being a total dumpster fire of a dad. Space Beth's back, basically John Wick with laser pecs, and it turns out she might be the real Beth. Earth Beth's just chilling with Jerry and the kids. That is, until Rick's lies and secrets catch up with him. See, one Beth stayed, while the other became a freedom-fighting space outlaw. Which one's the clone? Who knows? Not even Rick, because he literally erased the answer from his own brain like a coward. Meanwhile, Morty and Summer get into an invisibility war, causing chaos everywhere. In the end, the Beths unite, kids disown Rick again, and Rick's left lonely and bitter. Good finale to the season. I give season 4 out of 5 Pickle Ricks. Rick's dying, Morty's flying, and the ship's about to crash. Morty calls Jessica to confess his love, she's also into him, and bam, they crash into the ocean. Enter Mr. Nimbus, Rick's speedo-wearing fish nemesis. To calm things down, Rick invites Mr. Nimbus over for dinner. Morty's stuck fetching wine from a time-warped dimension where time flies. Morty just wanted to get some wine, and now he's suddenly the devil of an entire civilization. Jessica gets sucked into the dimension too, spends centuries inside, and when Morty finally saves her, turns out she just wants to be friends. Rick and Nimbus fight and bond until Summer ruins it all. Meanwhile, Beth, Jerry, and Mr. Nimbus have a bit of a weird dynamic going on. Good season 5 premiere. The Smiths are gathered around the dining table, enjoying dinner, right before squid assassins burst in and blast the entire family. But surprise, that was just one of Rick's decoy families. Turns out, after the whole Space Beth mess, Rick got paranoid and made decoy Smiths all around the world. But then the decoys made their own decoys, who made even more decoys. It turns into an absolute bloodbath of Smiths killing Smiths. In the end, Mr. Always Wants to Be Hunted kills the last decoys, and the real Smith family's just chilling in space. This was a confusing ass episode. While out shopping with Rick, Morty meets Planetina, an eco superhero who Morty impresses by recycling a can. He immediately falls in love, and Planetina flies away with Morty like he's a Disney princess. Meanwhile, Bet's freaking out that her 14-year-old is dating an immortal goddess who looks like she's 30. While Rick and Summer go on a wild apocalypse bar crawl, Morty and Planetina get serious. But then Morty finds out she's being controlled by the Tina Tears, some washed up adults profiting off her powers. So Morty straight up kills them all. How romantic. Things get messy when Planetina starts going full eco-terrorist. Morty realizes he's blinded by love and breaks up with her in the most cinematic sequence of the show. Meanwhile, someone nukes an asteroid to sabotage Rick's shallow fling. Rick's annoyed, but also proud. This was an amazing episode, most emotional one so far. Morty falls in love with Planetina, and then finds out that she's actually a cold-hearted killer, which is very poetic when you think about it. How many of us have fallen in love with a woman only to find out she isn't who you thought she was? And the end scene where Flower Morty sheds a tear is pure cinema. 5 out of 5 episode. Morty volunteers at Bet's hospital to help with horse breeding for very questionable reasons. Later, Rick grabs a barrel of horse to make a weapon against underground cannibal horse people called Chuds. It backfires bad, mostly due to the fact that the horse is actually Morty's, causing the sperm to mutate into giant human-eating monsters. The Pentagon freaks out and Morty lies about the outbreak. Rick, Morty, and the Marines fight kill a sperm and a guy in a thong dies. They get captured by a sperm queen but escape with help from Sticky, a sperm that recognizes Morty as his dad.
I'm not exactly accepting apologies while I'm stuck here as handjob solo. Summer
comes up with the idea of directing the sperm to fertilize an egg to distract it, but turns out the egg is Summer's. So Morty's sperm plus Summer's egg equals giant incest baby. Beth asks Jerry to watch the kids, but he's too busy having guys' night with Rick and a couple misery-feeding demons. Meanwhile, Morty invites the new kid at school, Bruce Chupback, to get on his good side, but Bruce is more interested in Rick's car, which leads them to stealing it and taking it on an intergalactic joyride. Beth crashes karaoke night with the demons, and things get dark fast. The car kills a god, pretends to be a robot, and gets the kids arrested. Demons drag Jerry to hell, so Rick and Beth go after him in disguise. They use a misery-powered turret to escape. Rick cancels guys' night, Bruce leaves, and Morty and Summer chug the leftover wine. It's Thanksgiving, and Rick and Morty break into a government building to steal a treasure map hidden under the Constitution. Morty accidentally nukes the Statue of Liberty, which turns out to be a giant robot. Oops. The government locks down the Smith house, but an alien plant monster eats the attacking soldiers. Rick and the president both want a pardon, so Rick turns into a turkey to sneak into the White House. Things go sideways fast. DNA mix-ups create a turkey president, who builds a turkey army. They meet a giant spider Roosevelt, who with the help of Native Americans and pilgrims defeat the turkey army, and the episode ends with Morty destroying the Washington Monument. Rick, Morty, and Summer are headed to Bird's world, but Rick spots a Gotron ferret and gets obsessed. It's like Voltron, but dumber. They collect all 5 and make a giant robot to fight monsters. Rick wants more, so they team up with other Ricks and build a mega Gogotron. Morty warns Rick not to get too obsessed, and of course, Rick doesn't listen. Summer becomes Rick's right-hand man, Morty gets sidelined, and Rick spirals into drunk madness. Morty's then kidnapped by the original anime pilots of the ferrets, who try to bribe and attack him. Chaos breaks out, and hothead Rick dies in a club fight, and Summer fires everyone. Turns out, she just wanted to save her giant incest baby. Baby comes back, smashes everything, the end. I liked the Italian mafia references, but the episode was quite trash to be honest. While the rest of the family are away, Rick tries to revive his old buddy Bird Person, who's half dead and hiding deep in his own mind. So Rick jumps into his memories, naked and confused, and teaming up with the snarky memory Rick. They relive wild battles, parties, and old resistance plans while searching for Bird Person. He's trapped in a red crystal, building bombs and trying to self-destruct. Rick stops him, but things get chaotic. As they escape, they learn Bird Person as a child held by the Federation, which gives Bird Person the will to live. Fighting the Federation and memories of Tammy, they finally escape. But Bird Person isn't too happy with Rick for hiding his kid from him this whole time. Morty's hopping through dimensions cleaning up Rick's messes, but when he gets home, he realizes Rick marked the portal fluid. To hide it, Morty tops it off with Mountain Dew. Smart. He spills some on his hand and ends up with a tiny portal in his palm, linked to a dude named Nick with one on his leg. They bond over their Rick trauma and become the Portal Boys. Meanwhile, Rick's furious after finding out Morty used his portal gun and proceeds to replace him with 2 crows he picks off a spin wheel full of Morty replacements. Turns out Nick's kind of nuts, so Morty slices his own hand off to stop him. Rick comes back, only to say Morty sucks as a partner and flies off with the birds.
You hurt my feelings, master.
Rick's living his anime dreams as a crow samurai and tells Morty to beat it when he tries to reunite. Morty fakes being old by using aging serum and claims Jerry's dead and Summer married a junkie to try and guilt trip Rick into coming back. Meanwhile, the crows ditch Rick for their enemy, Crow Scare. Crushed, Rick goes home just in time for Morty to drag him to the Citadel. There, evil Morty, now president, reveals how messed up it all is. Mortys get cloned, brainwashed, and farmed. He uses Rick's secrets to escape the central finite curve, aka the Rick-verse bubble. The Citadel explodes as evil Morty walks through into a Rick-free multiverse. Let me start by saying they tried way too hard with the episode names this season. Like, I get a pun here and there is funny, but 90% of these titles made no sense whatsoever. I felt that this season was a huge step down from the previous 4. I give season 5 3 out of 5 Pickle Ricks. After evil Morty broke the multiverse last season, Rick and Morty are now stranded in Citadel junk until Space Beth rescues them like a cowboy in a ship. Rick tries fixing the portal gun, but messes it up so bad, everyone who's ever used the portal gets zapped back to the original dimension. Jerry ends up at the wrong daycare, Morty's back in the prime timeline, and Rick lands back in his tragic backstory, Dimension C-137. While Morty meets his old, emotionally dead dad, Rick hangs out with a creepy AI version of his dead wife. And surprise, Rick Prime is back too. Morty gives Rick a pep talk, Beth argues over who's cooler, and Mr. Frundles eats the world. Time to jump into a new dimension! Yay! Rick, Morty, and Summer hit the arcade, but an alien gang takes over. Morty's playing a game called Roy when his mind gets scattered across the game's NPCs. Rick jumps in as Roy to save him. Summer's told to do a die hard against aliens, even though she's never seen the movie. Inside the game, Rick convinces the Morty NPCs they're all versions of Morty, sparking a religion that splits into cults. To rescue Morty's mind, they have to fly beyond the game's edge to reset everything. Most escape, but Marta, a self-aware Morty, stays behind to live in peace. Space Beth crashes Thanksgiving, and she and Beth start flirting over wine, which turns into a full-on love affair. Morty and Summer notice the weird relationship and decide to bury themselves in a video game to avoid dealing with it. Rick warns Beth to think about how this will mess up the family, especially Jerry, who said he'd kill himself if Beth ever left him again. Beth doubts it, and Space Beth ends up telling Jerry everything. Jerry kills into a bug, but then surprises everyone by saying he's okay with the cheating. In the end, Beth, Space Beth, and Jerry have a super awkward relationship, while Morty and Summer lose it. Beth can't sleep because Jerry's snoring, so she crashes on the couch, only to find Rick doing midnight crunches. Turns out, he's got a machine that lets his unconscious body do stuff while he sleeps. Now Night Rick has washboard abs, and the family wants in. Night Beth learns trumpet, Night Summer studies Spanish, Night Morty works out, and Night Jerry becomes pen pals with Day Jerry. But when Night Summer wants the Day family to rinse dishes, Rick loses it. The next morning, dishes are smashed, war is on. Night family takes over, enslaving the Day family, but months later they go broke, destroy the machine, and free everyone. The Smiths are eating Panda Express when Jerry's fortune cookie tells him he will sleep with his mother. Jerry freaks out, Morty and Summer laugh, and Rick warns him that messing with fate usually backfires. Rick finds out that the cookies came from an alien poop factory run by meth dealers. Turns out Jerry's fortune is a trap and he can't die until it happens. The evil CEO tries to force Jerry and his mom together, turns into a monster, and gets eaten by an alien. Jerry almost falls into the black hole, but Rick saves him with a custom fortune. Jerry calls Rick a friend, breaking Rick's immortality. Morty's late for school, and Rick's portal gun summons a giant Cthulhu, so Rick drives him instead. Suddenly, dinosaur spaceships land, saying they're here to fix Earth, ending hunger, jobs, and all problems. Everyone's bored, except Jerry, who finally publishes his book. The president begs Rick to kick out the dinos. Rick meets the dino leaders, but they ego him and instead school him on interdimensional travel. Pissed, he visits planets the dinos saved, only to find meteors wiping them out. Back on Earth, humans revolt, dinos leave, and chaos returns. Rick saves dinos on Mars from meteors, fixes his portal gun, and celebrates by hosting the Oscars. The episode starts with a weird recap that's actually a trap from some venomous dude named Previous Leon. Rick and Morty fight him, but Leon escapes into a crazy meta dimension and Rick drags Morty after him. Leon calls Jesus, who calls Storylord, a bored villain wanting real motivation. Storylord double crosses Jesus, but gets trapped by Leon's venom. Rick knocks Leon out and heads to meet the self-referential Six, a group of story bosses who mess with plot twists and flashbacks. They catch Rick and Morty, but Morty blows them up. Rick frees a reality-bending guy named Rhett Khan, who flips the fortress into an orange and tosses it into a void. Joseph Campbell then shows up to save the day. Rick and Morty are ignoring a bunch of villains because apparently Rick's in therapy or something. Then this jerk, Pissmaster, shows up and starts bugging Summer. Jerry's had enough and beats Pissmaster to a pulp, becoming an instant hero with a cool suit. So of course, Rick gets jealous. Rick tries to fix things by pretending to be Pissmaster and doing heroic stuff, but it backfires. Turns out Pissmaster killed himself because of what Jerry did to him. Rick wants to make it right by being the new Pissmaster, but the family finds out, and it all ends with Jerry feeling guilty. Morty drags Rick to a fancy space restaurant and somehow ends up getting knighted by weird sun people. But to be a knight, Morty has to cut off his junk.
Oh, hell no! Hell no!
Morty rightfully refuses. Rick gives him a magic sword, Morty beats the Sun King, who kills himself and makes Morty king. Now the knights follow Morty everywhere. Morty says the king stuff is dumb science, sparking a space war over the magic scepter. He tricks the knights, fakes his death with Rick by jumping into the sun, and ends the crazy tradition. Morty's alive, but things are still messy. It's Christmas and Rick's acting nice, giving out crazy multiverse gifts like a Star Wars lightsaber to Morty. Morty drops it through the floor, sparking a wild chase to Rick's secret lair. Turns out, nice Rick is Rickbot, a robot Rick made to keep the family happy so he could hunt Rick Prime in peace. Morty keeps it a secret but is secretly mad. The president freaks out because the saber's falling towards Earth's core. Morty and the president take a drill ship to save the planet while Rickbot goes rogue in Italy. Rickbot gets brutally murdered by their family after finding out the truth. Rick ends up admitting that Rick Prime is still out there somewhere in the multiverse. I give season 6 2.5 out of 5 Pickle Ricks. The Smith family's annoyed because Mr. Poopy Butthole's been crashing at their place forever. Beth's had enough and sends Morty to grab Rick to sort it out. Turns out Mr. Poopy Butthole's a hot mess since Beth shot him. He lost his job, family, everything. Rick's busy chasing Rick Prime but gets dragged into the drama. First he tries to scare Mr. Poopy Butthole away with the Robo-Ghost, but when that doesn't work, he calls him back up. Gearhead, Squanchy, Bird Person, and even clueless neighbor Gene, who forgets to turn off his lawnmower before flying off. Chaos follows, classic Rick and Morty madness. Rick's fixing his flying saucer when Jerry shows up whining about his missing rake and blames their neighbor Gene. Rick just offers a gun, and Jerry calls him a jerk for being smart but mean. Rick, offended, suggests swapping minds with Jerry to prove who's really a waste of intellect, so Rick's brain goes into Jerry's body and Jerry's into Rick's. Rick in Jerry's body freaks out and blows his brains out, while Jerry, in Rick's body, accidentally kills himself with the jetpack. The garage's AI system fixes them, but accidentally mixes their brains. Each thinks they're Rick and the other is Jerry, so they bicker like crazy. Meanwhile, Morty's kidnapped by mobster Chuxley's thugs, who freak out after they find out who Morty's the grandson of. The mixed up Jericki fights through, kills the bad guy, then later unfused after chaos. All back to normal, but same old Rick and Jerry fighting. Rick's in therapy with Dr. Wong when President Curtis calls for help hunting the Loch Ness Monster in Lake Erie. Curtis starts crushing on Dr. Wong, which Rick silently hates. They head to Virginia to stop a cult, which turns out is actually Rick's ex Unity taking over the state. Rick sprays a separation scent to break Unity's control while realizing Curtis and Dr. Wong are getting too cozy. Rick and Curtis trap Virginia in an energy dome, tanking Curtis's ratings. Unity calls Rick out on ghosting her, and they argue. Back home, Rick and Unity watch Curtis, who uses the hive mind to boost ratings. Unity frees the people, and Rick finally listens to her voicemails. Turns out she just wanted to check up on him. The Smiths are loving their weekly spaghetti nights until Morty finds out it's made from actual dead people. Like an entire planet turns people who killed themselves into gourmet noodles. Morty freaks out, tries to make a big deal at a funeral, but the family's way more upset about losing their spaghetti nights than the fact that they're actually eating people. The planet's president offers ethical spaghetti, but it turns out they're making people sad on purpose to keep the food supply going. Morty tries to fix it with the Rick, but ends up failing. Then one guy's whole life story airs before he dies, and suddenly, no one wants to eat him. Rick loses his appetite too, and the family settles for ethically questionable steak. Finally, the first good episode in a while. Evil Morty's chilling in his own dimension now, but we get his full backstory. Turns out he killed a bunch of Ricks, kidnapped Morty's to climb the ladder, and became Citadel president. Meanwhile, Rick and Morty are still hunting Rick Prime, but keep getting trolled by decoys. Evil Morty shows up, helps fix the scanner, and they all get trapped in some Hunger Games setup. Rick Prime says the winner gets Diane back, but it's all a big lie. Rick and Evil Morty team up, survive, and find Rick Prime's real hideout. Rick finally kills him, but afterwards, just feels empty inside. Evil Morty bounces, Morty's stoked, and Rick's stuck questioning his whole life.
There, I was like, oh shit, this is, we're so.
This episode was actually quite emotional. Morty finds Rick passed out drunk in the garage, still sad after beating Rick Prime. Morty tries cheering him up with Morty adventure cards, but Rick accuses him of faking stamps. That's when a cosmic tattletale rock called the Observer shows up and plays clips of the adventure, judging which ones actually count. Then things turn personal. The Observer starts roasting their worst moments, embarrassing everyone, except Jerry, who's used to it. Morty loses it and shoves the Observer into oncoming traffic, and it gets crushed by a truck. Now they're on trial for murder. Rick cheats his way out by hacking the Observer's tech and exposing their own dirty secrets. Chaos breaks out and they escape. Summer begs Rick for an attribute slider to boost his skills at a frisbee golf party. He says yes, but not for Morty. Morty steals it anyways, cranks his body stats, and chaos follows. They end up fused together after a pool fight, with Morty sticking out of Summer's belly like a weird tiny creature yelling,
Open your mind.
Summer joins a club for merged people and meets Quiet, who's secretly a trafficker. Rick swoops in and they all battle to save Morty. Even the bad guy's own Quado turns on him. Summer joins the school team, Morty tags along as a tiny belly bro, and accidentally nukes the bleachers. Ice-T becomes Water T and gets pulled into a cosmic war. His planet, Alphabetrium, is under attack by the
Numericons.
He needs the Eye of Harmony, which only a math nerd can crack. So he grabs Mr. Goldenfold and Morty, who's in detention, for a space adventure. They dodge Assassin Sinister 7, party with weird Googers, and Water T ends up kissing his enemy. Meanwhile, Emperor Dreadnought's daughter is shady, and the traitor Oxygen S turns into Infinity and goes power crazy. Water T evolves into Magma T, nukes Infinity, and saves the universe. Back home, Morty suddenly loves math, and Mr. Goldenfold finally gets his homework. Weirdest field trip ever. This was a terrible episode, I'm not gonna lie. Jerry kicks off by dying and hanging with Nana in the afterlife. Meanwhile, Rick's busy trying to score infinite energy by dying warrior style in Valhalla. So he traps Bigfoot in a Pokeball to get himself killed. Vikings keep killing and resurrecting Rick until he figures out the system. Morty dies comforting Bigfoot and crashes the Valhalla party too. Back on Earth, Bigfoot goes rogue and ends up controlled by the Pope as a secret assassin. Rick and Morty build an energy relay in Valhalla, while Bigfoot learns the truth and teams up with them. After lots of deaths, Rick tricks Vikings, cuts off the Pope's power, and Bigfoot returns with some serious street cred. Rick and Morty visit the Carnival of Nightmares, but realize nothing scares them anymore. A slick guy takes them to a boring Denny's with a fear hole portal in the men's room that forces you to face your worst fears. Morty jumps in, Rick mostly bails but saves Morty from monsters. Inside, Morty sees visions of Rick with his dead wife Diane, which freaks him out because it means Rick might move on without him. Rick gets all soft chasing Diane's illusion, which drains him. Morty figures out that the fear hole's feeding off Rick's fear and tries facing his own embarrassing fears to weaken it. Morty realizes his deepest fear is being replaceable to Rick. The breakthrough allows him to finally escape, while Rick chooses to stay behind in the hope he can see Diane again. This was a really good episode. I give season 7 3.5 out of 5 Pickle Ricks. So grown-up Summer's a total boss and Morty's an off-the-grid ex-soldier in a world obsessed with phone chargers. All because Rick trapped them in a matrix as punishment for not returning his phone charger. Back in the real world, Summer and Beth bond over wine and fresh haircuts, but Summer's sass soon annoys Beth. Morty's haunted by war flashbacks thanks to chargers, and builds a death race car to blow off steam. Beth borrowing Rick's charger triggers Morty's worst flashbacks. Morty puts Rick in a matrixception, and he's about to blow the power grid, which would kill all electricity and make America unlivable. But Summer stops him and admits she masterminded the whole charger war for lithium. Rick saves the day, wipes the kids' memories, so they forget all this ever happened. Space Beth calls Rick for backup after a mission to kill the Gromflemite Queen goes sideways. Family drama heats up as Rick and Space Beth's messy history and feelings surface, stirring tension between the two. And that pretty much sums up every season of Rick and Morty so far, excluding the full season 8 as there were only 2 episodes released at the time of recording this video. Now what are my thoughts on Rick and Morty? What I'm about to say may upset a lot of you, but Rick and Morty's low-key overrated. It's not a bad show, don't get me wrong, I liked it, but from what I heard, you'd think the show cured cancer and solved world hunger. Like yeah, it's smart and funny, but a lot of the time, it also feels like it's just being weird for the sake of being weird. Some episodes are pure genius, and others feel like they were written during a midlife crisis. I'm not saying it's bad, it's not, I get the hype, to a point. But people act like you need a PhD in quantum physics just to understand the jokes, when really it's just Rick burping mid-sentence and Morty screaming for 20 minutes. Still though, when it's good, it's really good. Just maybe not greatest show of all time good. The show drastically fell off after season 4 for me. I'm not sure if it just started feeling too repetitive or if the writers genuinely stopped trying, but the charm the show once had during its early seasons just seemed to have vanished. And let's be real, once Justin Roiland left in season 6, that was the final nail in the coffin. I honestly think Rick and Morty would have been perfect if it wrapped up after 4 solid seasons, like all good shows should. To To be honest, I probably won't keep watching the show now that this video's done. Never say never, I guess, but I just feel there's so many better shows out there I'd rather waste my time watching. Who knows, maybe Rick and Morty will pull off a miracle and season 8 will somehow be the greatest thing since Pickle Rick. But let's be real, that's about as likely as Jerry getting a job. Anyways, enough waffling, here are my rankings. Coming in at last place is... Bear in mind, this is only due to the fact that there weren't enough episodes to fairly judge the season on. In 7th place, we have... with a shocking score of 2.5 Pickle Ricks. This season was mediocre to say the least. 6th place goes to... sitting at a rough 3 Pickle Ricks. Some highs, but too many episodes felt like fillers. 5th place is... a tiny step up, but still kinda meh. It had some strong moments, but also gave off that we're trying too hard to still be edgy vibe. 3.5 Pickle Ricks. 4th place, we've got the OG... solid intro to the chaos. 3.5 Pickle Ricks. Not perfect, but it laid the foundation well. 3rd place is... scoring a smooth 4 Pickle Ricks. A good mix of classic style episodes and some real gems. 2nd place goes to... with another 4 Pickle Ricks. Consistent, funny, emotional, just peak Rick and Morty energy. This season knew exactly what it was doing and nailed it. And finally, 1st place goes to... 4.5 Pickle Ricks. It's the perfect storm of insane writing, iconic episodes, and surprisingly emotional depth. And now strap yourselves in for the episode ranking speedrun. Ready? Last place we have Summer Sleepover, The Great Yokai Battle of Akihabara, Rise of the
Numericons,
the movie, Valkyrick, Returnal Friendshine of the Spotless Mort, Forgetting Sarah Mortshell, Claw and Hoarder, Special Victims Morty, Rick's the Minutes, Never Ricking Morty, 90s Fad Toys, Full Meta Jack Rick, Something Rick This Way Comes, Gotron Jerry Sis Rick Vangelion, Rick Morai Jack, Rixie Business, Rick, A Mort Well Lived, Me Seeks and Destroy, Morty Night Run, The Whirly Durly Conspiracy, Rattlestar Rick Lactica, Anatomy Park, Interdimensional Cable 2, Tempting Fate, Rick Potion 9, Pilot, The Old Man in the Sea, A Morty Can Graffiti, Solar Ricks, Night Family, Final Desmithation, The ABCs of Beth, Air Force Wong, Lawnmower Dog, Analyze Piss, A Rick and King Mortar's Mort, Rick Fending Your Mort, How Poopy Got His Poop Back, Rick Mancing the Stone, M. Night Shame Aliens, A Rickle in Time, Guess Swifty, Mortyplicity, Rick Dependent Spray, Child Rick of Mort, Bethic Twin Stick, Rictional Mortpoon's Rickmas Mortcation, Pro Mortius, Autoerotic Assimilation, The Ricturian Morty Date, Jurixic Mort, Big Trouble in Little Sanchez, Tanksploitation Spectacular, Wekua Amortican Summer, The Jarek Trap, Raising Gazorpazorp, Vindicators 3, The Return of World Ender, Rest and Rick Laxation, One Crew Over the Cuckoo's Morty, Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind, Total Rickle, Look Who's Purging Now, The Wedding Squanchers, Morty's Mind Blowers, Star Mort Rick Turn of the Jerry, That's a Morty, Edge of Tomorty, Rick Die Rick Pete, The Ricklantis Mix Up, The Ricks Must Be Crazy, The Rick Shank Redemption, The Vat of Acid Episode, Mort Dinner Rick Andre, Unmortrickin, A Rick Convenient Mort, Pickle Rick, and the best episode of all time, Fear No More. So there it is, every single episode of Rick and Morty, ranked, rated, and reviewed by a movie connoisseur. If you disagree, that's fine, just know you're wrong. This video took me 2 months to make, so if you did enjoy it, and if you do have some spare time, please do consider subscribing and checking out other videos on my channel. It means a lot to me. Anyways, enough of that. Thanks for watching.
Wubba lubba dub dubs! Yeah!